have made note of this before, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit worse now. And what I'm getting at is the generation of hype from media. And I'm not talking media like social media. I'm talking like movies and shows and things like that. Like rewind in time back to this would be fall of 2018. So I started working out summer of 2018. That was when I quit doing gymnastics that year, or maybe a few months before that year. I don't know, but that's what I did in high school. 3 hours a day except for Sunday, really high activity level. So as soon as I quit doing it, it's like, all right, I got a pretty big chunk of time where I've just been being super active. And then the gym was kind of it sort of fit the place. I'd say almost better, but that's that's its own story. But when I started working out, I don't remember exactly what made me find it, because this was pre-TikTok edits. Back in 2018, you couldn't see a really cool edit of like a TV show or a movie or anything and think, oh wow, that looks pretty cool, I should look up whatever that is. This is back when you're watching an AMV. You're watching a freaking Bring Me the Horizon AMV hype Goku Super Saiyan edit to get you going. But somehow I found Baki. So I'm talking the original like 98 and like 2000 season. And the whole show, the basic premise of it is, there's a storyline, but it's really just like a fighting show. Like there's like a fighting tournament. The guy's trying to get strong enough to whoop his dad. That's a very brief description, but it was super cool, and it was just bare bones like hype. The guy's freaking brawling. It just got me going. So I was watching that when I started working out. And the main character, he also lifted weights in the show too. So it's like a 1-to-1, like, shit, this guy's fucking cool. Freaking cool. Sorry about that. Even watching Goku and like Dragon Ball Z and that sort of stuff. Like Naruto. I almost forgot. Rocky. I remember very distinctly, this is back when I'm, 170 pound self. I was watching Rocky for the first time, or at least the first time, like semi-grown. I might have watched it at the house, like as a kid sometime, but I didn't really remember. And I'm sitting there, I'm deep into working out now. I'm eating my protein. I got a bowl of sardines, because I'm like, hell yeah, omega-3s, tons of creatine in sardines as well. Don't quote me on that for specifically, but I'm pretty sure. But that kind of stuff, just that's what gets me going, like just maybe not bare, that's not the right word, but let's say pure unadulterated, just like effort, like in all these kind of stories where the main character kind of has this training arc and then hurdles and things like that. Like it doesn't have to directly correlate to what you're doing, but you can still feed off of that energy. I'm definitely not the kind of guy to be let's say purely reliant on internal hype. And so what I'm referencing is when guys will say like, yeah, I don't want to bring headphones to the gym because I don't want to rely on music. I've heard guys say they don't want to take pre-workout because they don't want to be dependent on it, and then they're not going to get a good workout if they forget it. Which, the forgetting part, definitely not a legit argument. I don't think I've ever forgotten my pre-workout, or if I have, it's, few and far between. In terms of the dependency side, in a way, but you really do have a better workout, right? You get more blood flow with all the nitrogen, nitric oxide kind of boosting components, plus all the nootropic side of things with some of the lion's mane and whatever else. Like I really do. Obviously I'm a pre-workout proponent. Yeah, proponent. But that's not how I look at it. I don't need to only generate all this hype and excitement internally. Like I almost want to look up to, and I know it's kind of a silly thing to say, but I almost want to look up to some of these characters, like, arcs and struggles and, things like that, and just, kind of feed off it. It's almost like you're trying to live vicariously through them, and the binding variable between you and this storyline, completely fictional character, is the fact that you're gonna freaking bring it. So it's not like I'm thinking like that all the time, but that is definitely an angle, because what are we trying to do? We're kind of the whole point of progress, the whole point of like getting better at anything is just kind of the embodiment of aspiring. You're trying to get bigger. All right, well, if I'm trying to get bigger, I'm probably going to look at guys who are bigger than me and think, hell yeah, that's pretty cool. I want to do what they're doing. So the kind of second cause of being able to do that is, okay, well, if I want to get bigger, at least the way I look at it, is more so to put effort into the lifts themselves. Like, the harder that I'm going and the more effort and focus that I'm putting into my training, my diet, my sleep, my hydration, everything else, that's what's going to improve my training. I think we're in a little bit of a point where we're thinking, okay, if I want better training results, I should improve the technique of my training. I should make sure that my training routine is absolutely pristine, which of course is certainly an angle to look at. Like, I think we all want our training to be effective, but I think we've kind of lost a little bit of focus, at least in some TikTok mainstream kind of gym content. I don't mean everyone in the whole world, but maybe just a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, where it's like, what's a better lift? The lift that was written out the best, or the one that was executed the best? Now, the real answer is both. A good lift that was taken to the extreme in practice. But the taking it to the extreme in practice and actually being present and focusing and actually like making every set and then every rep in every set count, I think that's probably 75% of the bread and butter, or that's the main course. Now, the specifics of the training, I think, is certainly important. That's I don't know what kind of meal analogy I could make that would balance off as well, but I think the guy who comes in and just has a really basic workout, like nothing fancy, but totally kills it, may beat the guy who has a really perfect workout and then only kind of moderately kills it. So I guess what I'm really trying to say is, don't go through the motions. If you ever catch yourself going through the motions when you're in a state where you're trying to progress hard, well, guess what? It's just not going to happen. There's nothing passive about the process of either getting bigger or getting leaner. It's a little bit more passive if you're just maintaining, but that's a different state of being. You obviously you still need to bring it if you're trying to maintain your build. But dieting, nobody's passively dieting. Nobody said, oh yeah, I forgot I was dieting the last 3 months. I'm shredded. Never happened. Abso-freaking-lutely never. And same thing with an off season, which now is kind of going to be the sort of the pinpoint of focus for these next few months. Nobody's growing without bringing it. Obviously, if you put a guy in the gym as a total beginner, right, newbie gains are certainly at play, so he's in his most prime state to grow. But beyond that, you've got to leverage the tools at your disposal. So of course, eat your gram of protein per pound of body weight. Stay hydrated. Liters of water a day. I'm not saying you need to drink a full gallon. It probably wouldn't hurt. I'd try almost all the time. I just want fluids next to me that I can sip on to make sure I'm, maximizing my at least my fluid intake. Sleep more than 4 hours a night. That is a really big one. And then when you're actually in the gym, that's work time, at least when you're really doing your sets. Now, in between, you can freaking chat somebody's ear off as long as you get back to your next working set after your rest period is over. But don't expect progress if you don't output the necessary effort, basically just behind the scenes. So that's where it's good to have a little bit of a reflection every so often. And it doesn't really, I'm not trying to, I just had like a perfect reference and now it's gone. Well, just look at yourself objectively. Don't hate on yourself, but really give yourself a clear, kind of a clear reflection and think, am I really bringing it? Am I really pushing it? I feel like I haven't, and if the answer is no, well then guess what? That's your call to action. That's your call to action to start killing it. My legs right now are completely freaking destroyed from yesterday. And the only really, semi-hefty set that I did was just that one set of 3-plate Smith squats. So, peak bulk in a few months, that would basically do nothing for my legs. My strength will get to a level where just to do a 3-plate set of squats on Smith for 10, that's a warm-up. That's not even, that's well within reason. But right now, since I'm still in this kind of re-attaining my strength after this whole bodybuilding prep, I'm going to come back stronger. So every set that I do, or at least I'm going to try to make sure that every set that I do, I'm going to bring it to the point where I'm causing myself to have something that I need to adapt to. So after this chest day, I want to get back in the car and think, I want to feel like I really thrashed my chest. And I'm sure my chest is going to be sore tomorrow because of it. Now, this will be my last point before we get started. This is going to be like a long-ended little kind of ramble of different points. But in terms of soreness, I think we often hear soreness is the enemy. You do not need to be sore. Just because you're sore doesn't mean that you had a good workout, things along that line. And to that, I'd say, once you're in the full groove of things, yes. But if you're trying to up your game with your training intensity, you're trying to up your game with the bar that you're trying to reach, honestly, I think being sore is kind of an indicator that you're at least doing something new. I don't get sore if I come in and do really lightweight that I'm well within, the strength to do, get a minor pump and then leave. It's not going to make me sore because I can already do that. What makes me sore and where I'm going to feel, basically just feel it the next day, is when I push it way harder than I have been, or at least substantially harder than I have been, and then I get that feedback of, dude, you just hit your chest way harder than you've been hitting it the last few weeks, which right now is obviously the case because I've just been prepping for the Arnold, the Columbus one, and the UK. So now that I'm reintroducing a bit more food, and I'm only eating around maintenance. I'm not just packing on size. I didn't have a 50-pound post-show rebound. This morning I weighed 236. So that's only 6 pounds heavier than I was walking around before the show. So that's a little bit of body fat, but mainly just carbs and water. So I'm not trying to just perma bulk instantly. But yeah, now that I don't have to worry about overdoing it and I can really kind of focus on my recovery, I want to give myself something to recover from. I think that's the main point I'm getting at. I want to induce a necessary recovery need in the gym. And then when I come home, if I really killed it, well, for one, I'm going to be hungry, I'm definitely going to be tired, and I'm going to be thirsty. So if I have an awesome training session, then I'm going to come home, eat a solid amount of food, drink a ton of water, and then sleep like a baby. Wake up the next morning, sure, my chest might still be sore, but the rest of me has now recovered from that, food, fluid, and rest, and then just repeat the process, So it's to the point where, as much as we can try to improve, the overall just pattern of everything, sometimes more effort really just equals more results. Because the harder you go, the more tired you'll be, the better you'll sleep, the better you'll recover, the easier it'll be to go harder again the next day. It's just always this feedback loop. So yeah, that's so just take a second, just think about your training. Have you been bringing it harder than before? And maybe look at it in more of kind of a long-term scale. Are you a better, more intense lifter than you were last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, and before that, and before that, depending on how long you've been working out for, right? Because there's no end state. There's no end. There's no specific point. It's kind of just this constant changing and evolution. Even if the changes are only minor, if you keep changing for the better, it's going to start adding up, right? It's going to start adding up quick. It's like when the guys say, you know, if you saved $100 a month and you invested in the S&P 50 years ago, and then it, you know, turns into like a crazy number, right? Things like that. But I think that's enough of this ramble. I am, well, let's just say I'm ready to kill chest, or at least maim it. Maybe not kill, but at least maim. So let's get started. All right. So let's start with a kind of, well, let's say converging back supported cable press. You could just grab the cables and bend over into it, but this is a much more stable kind of just version of that. So I'm really trying to suck my shoulder blades in and only feel my chest. So instead of having my hands like this, I'll kind of turn them upwards. Like I'm trying to get my, like my pinkies to touch almost. But let's get real. All right. Two more of those. One more. And then let's either move on to a fly or some sort of press, just a different version. All right. Two. Pooh. Ooh. All right. Yeah, let's move on. Those were a really good 3 starter sets, though. All right, so nothing so crazy heavy, but 2 plates and a 25 will be good here. And then last chest day, I was using the neutral grip of this incline press, but this time I'm going to use the pronated one, so a little more standard. But yeah, peak off season, 4 plates, and it's not because I want to do 4 plates. It's 4 plates is a weight that would be necessary for like a 12 rep failure set. Will probably get be what this machine ends up balancing out at. But for now, 2 out of 25 is heavy enough. All right. Okay. Oh, one more of those. Shit. Okay, I thought I had a little something going there. All right. Yeah, time for a fly. Let's do cable. Let's do cable. So very different than the two movements already. This is going to be a slighter, really squeezing, holding, sort of decline fly. So even though I am pulling my hands down, at the bottom, I'm pushing them together. So it's not so much a decline action as it is kind of like a cross the chest action, if you feel me. So still a super good lower chest stretch on top, but at the bottom, I feel like I'm just flexing my whole chest because I'm doing like a most muscular kind of hold. 70. Perfect. I can go one notch higher. All right, let's finish with a hand over hand press. And I think that will be all. If it's not, though, I'll just do 2 sets instead of 1. But I think after this next one, I'll be fully freaking pumped. Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness. All right. Let's see how we're looking. That was a badass chest day, that's for sure. All right. What is our prediction? What is underneath this tactical, super lightweight Gymshark tee? I wish. Actually, what am I saying? I wish. I guess I can see if I can make that happen. This would be crazy in like a red. but so far, not yet. But yeah, I've been grubbing. I've been grubbing these last few days. Like, not exactly the cleanest foods. I've had some Reese's Cups. I just had, actually, honestly, I guess the Reese's Cups are the most treats that I've kind of had. But I've kind of lost that post-sickness, which was really supposed to be post-show bloat. But what happened was, after the bodybuilding show on the 27th, I ate a bunch of crap because I'm done competing. Woke up really watery and just kind of freaking gross. Then I got food poisoning, and I got really dry and depleted again. And then when I ate a bunch of food after that, I got kind of big and watery. And then now I've kind of lost that extra watery layer. So a little bit softer than just a few weeks ago, but not so much, you know. I mean, I'm not like the kind of guy who's looking at myself with any amount of body fat and thinking, oh crap, I got to do more cardio. You know, like my version of body dysmorphia, which I don't even feel that dysmorphic, but I probably am. It's not so much big and lean. If anything, it's probably just big. But no, I feel like a beast right now. And I did do a few sets of lateral raises in between sets, so I'm kind of cheating. I got a little bit of a shoulder pump as well. But let's see how we're looking in a few. Yeah, that's what I want to see. I feel like that's a ton of roundness on this chest. Yeah, that's just freaking sweet. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I definitely feel bigger than 236 right now, which is freaking sweet because I have got room to grow. That is for sure. Now, I'm not in like a speed run to get to a really soft 260 or anything, but I do want to make sure that the scale starts to increase slow and steady. So as much as I'm going to eat in a surplus and I can have some treats, I don't want to overdo it, or else I'm just going to kill my ability to keep eating going forward. Just like in a diet, you've got to gradually reduce your calories. In a bulk, you got to gradually increase them. Let's get in the car and freaking roll. All right, this is what I'm talking about. The sun's shining. It's not too cold out. It's 49, but still, I mean, that's way better than 0, which doesn't even feel like it was that long ago. And the weird thing about Ohio, it's probably going to snow again, which, I mean, freaking April. What are we doing here? But the sun's shining. It's freaking bright. There's clouds in the sky, but they're not blocking the rays. And my chest is so swollen that the average person would think they're having an allergic reaction. This is nice. And it's been like 20 minutes since that last set. So, yeah, this is a good feeling. Thank you, glycogen. Thank you, glycogen. Thank you, water. Thank you, electrolytes, for letting me get a pump this freaking wild. And yeah, it feels good. I woke up this morning, and I'm even just from looking down at my ankles, that's the real telltale sign of if you're holding a lot of water. Oh, nasty, puffy ankles. Ugh, terrible. But this morning, back to normal. Seeing some cuts in my calves again. So yeah, we are golden. So if anytime you're on a long flight, or you're just kind of traveling this, that, or the other, you're doing a show, and at the end of it, you kind of have a bit of a rebound, there is one thing on your side, and that is going to be fluids. 0 sugar, of course. So if you're the type to avoid an aspartame, which personally I don't, you're basically fine. If the amount of diet soda that you'd have to drink for the aspartame in it to be an issue would be like 3,000 cans in a day, and even then, you'd probably still be all right. The water would get you first, but fluids are on your side. So just slamming them, kind of overloading in a sense, because it'll help sort of pull all that extra subcutaneous water out of its weird non-equilibrium state. So planning for tomorrow. Tomorrow might actually be a rest day. I'm still going to do my cardio, of course, but if my chest feels anything like how my legs feel today, and my legs are still going to be sore tomorrow, yeah, I think a rest day is in order. I'm not anti-rest day. I'm maybe a little bit less prone to take them than most, but if I've got one muscle group that's really wrecked, that doesn't mean I can't hit another. My logic has kind of been, if my legs are thrashed, but my chest is fresh, like it was today, I'm going to hit chest, and all's well. But if tomorrow tomorrow's supposed to be back, and I can tell my back is still pretty tender from my last back day today, so maybe I wake up and my back feels super fresh and recovered, and then I'm good, I'm going to hit back. But if my lats and mid traps are still feeling heavy like they are now, I think a rest day will be in order. Or maybe just an accessory day. Smash some calves, throw some forearms into the mix. But I might not. We'll see. We'll save that for tomorrow. I've got enough to figure out today, because I'm still going to get my cardio done. I'll just do that in the basement bike. I've got the part ordered finally to get the gym bike back in working order, because I didn't thread in the screw right on the left pedal like a total fool. And then I'll just be able to do my post-workout cardio right there and just jump straight into it, which is, I kind of like it. I've in most of my off seasons, I'm always thinking, okay, cardio in the morning, have 4 or 5 meals, and then train in the evening or the afternoon. But after this dieting phase, and really these last 2 dieting phases for the Arnold Amateur and then now for the Arnold this year, I've been liking training earlier in the day. Because I can come in, I'm still going to eat something pre-workout. But if I'm not really pushing food yet in a hard off season, I'm going to be averaging about 3,000 calories-ish, maybe a little more. I've been eating. I've had some 6,000 calorie days these last few weeks, or these last 2 weeks or so. That sickness week kind of helped undo that, because I could barely eat anything for a few days. But I'm going to have my average balance out to be, just around 3,000, low 3,000s, and then ease up from there. So if you've got a problem bulking up, for one, I might ask you this: are you even counting your calories at all? You can get away with not counting calories in an off season a bit easier, because it's not so strict. If you have a few days of a surplus and then a few days of maintenance, it's all going to kind of balance out a little bit positive. It's pretty easy to put on weight relatively, especially if you start eating, so just some junk. It's pretty easy to get 1,000 calories of ice cream in your system, even just waking up for a midnight snack, grabbing a pint or a quart or something and just going crazy. It's pretty easy to eat a ton. Dieting down, getting leaner, that's when you got to be really strict. But if you're not counting the amount of grams of protein and carbs and fats that are going into your system, then you're kind of lifting blind in a sense, because you're not you just don't have a good understanding. And not understanding, I just mean quantitative database to look at. So every guy that's going to say, oh, dude, I just can't gain weight. Well, it's not so much you can't gain weight, it's more than likely I can't eat enough food consistently to gain weight and put myself in this calorie surplus. So if you start counting your macros, and you don't have to be super crazy specific right off the gate, maybe just start by counting your protein. Download a macro tracking app, there's a million of them. Just start, and then you'll start to kind of see, ooh, I thought I was eating a lot of protein. But if you really take a day and just track all the food you're eating, don't limit your food. I'm not saying limit yourself or eat in a super crazy surplus or anything, but just take a day and try to figure out how much food you're actually getting into your system. if you actually track everything, it should be relatively eye-opening. Either, holy crap, I thought I was eating a lot more than I really was. Like, I've been telling people I've been eating 5,000 calories a day and I can't gain weight, but I actually tracked all my macros and I only ate 2,300. Or vice versa. The guy might be thinking, dude, I'm starving myself. I'm really pushing this diet. Like, I'm going hard. And then he tracks his macros and he realizes, shit, I just ate 3,500 calories today. I'm supposed to be dieting. Like, it all kind of, it's something where you can really be enlightened just by seeing those data points. And then it doesn't mean in one day you have to say, all right, you know what? I'm crashing my food, going straight down to 1,800 calories. I'm going to get peeled in, 12 weeks or something. Same thing with the training where I'm talking about raising the bar every so often. Even now, I got to raise my own bar, So coming in for these lifts, especially after these last few months of dieting, like, I want to push my intensity harder than I have before. I got to be a little careful so I don't hurt myself, but like, I'm always trying to just improve on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis. So if you look at dieting, the same thing, and just start small with tracking your protein, maybe start tracking your carbs, you'll just get a kind of better grasp of a game almost, So I think there's a strong correlation between what we'd call, and by advanced, I don't mean like huge, but there's guys in your gym where they know what they're doing. They don't have to be 300 freaking pounds of muscle. Like, the guy who's walking around 190, pretty peeled, and he's strong. And by peeled, I mean, like, he's got arm veins, he's just in good shape. Odds are that guy knows what he's doing with his macros. Odds are he's tracking all of his stuff, and he's got a food scale in the kitchen, right? So if that's the case and that correlation exists, if you start to do the things that these guys who are on their game do, how long is it going to take before you're on your game? So something to think about. And I know it's not exactly the most fun thing in the world, because usually we think, all the effort related to the gym is in the gym. But if you can take it home with you and do your homework in a sense of, just focusing on your food outside the gym, your in the gym performance will certainly improve. And then you start to realize, like, oh shit, if I do eat in a specific way for whatever my goals are, I'm going to feel pretty good in the gym, at least in off season when you're really properly fueled. You can have better lifts. And if you care about having better lifts, which I know I do, then that makes me even that much more motivated to get on my diet outside the gym, at least, for the purpose of that kind of performance benefit. But yeah, I got nothing else to say there. I'm going to enjoy the rest of today. I'm probably going to eat a couple of meals outside just because it's so freaking nice out. But yeah, all done with chest. So I'll see you for either a rest day, back day, maybe, not a shoulder day. Either a rest day, a back day, or a calves and forearm day. Those are the three possibilities. And I'm not sure which one will end up coming to fruition. But honestly, there's not a bad one out of the three. So I'll be okay with anything. I'll just have to make